Hello my friends, and welcome to Tom's Tinkering and Adventures. Once again, not in beautiful sunny San Diego, but in a little bit different location here today. Alaska. A couple months ago, my beautiful trophy wife visited me while I was on a road trip and visited me in Chicago, and we tried deep dish pizza. So I figured, I'm 3,000 miles away from Chicago, here with my son-in-law, my daughter, my granddaughter. I should make them some Chicago deep dish pizza. So that's what we're gonna try to make today here in Alaska. So let's call it Alaska deep dish pizza. How's that sound? Let's go inside where it's a little bit warmer and see what we can do about making some pizza. What you eating, Zelda? Cheese? Okay, we can make some cheese on pizza. You want pizza cheese? Okay. All right, we'll make pizza then, all right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Key to a good homemade pizza is homemade crust. So we're gonna start with 3¼ cups of flour. I'm using bread flour. You could use all-purpose flour. We're gonna add ½ cup of cornmeal to that. 1 tablespoon of sugar. The baby's talking over here. We got, how about a teaspoon, a little bit more than a teaspoon of salt. 2¼ cups of yeast. So if you buy it by the packet, that would be an entire packet. I like to buy it in this thing here. You get a little bit more for your money. Once you got all the dry ingredients in here, it's always a good idea to mix them up so you get an even distribution, especially of the yeast. Vital to have that evenly distributed in there. And I may actually end up having to move this to a larger bowl because what we're going to do is pizza dough is just like bread dough. It's going to rise. So we'll see. I think this bowl might be just big enough. To the dry ingredients, we are going to add 10 ounces of water. Now you don't want to add cold water and you don't want to add hot water because yeast is a living organism, and too hot of water will kill it and too cold of water will stall it and it just won't work correctly. So just warm to the touch. To this we're also adding 1/4 cup of melted butter. Once again, now I put this in the microwave and melted it, and it comes out of there pretty hot. So after I melt it, I let it sit for a while. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add the butter to the water, so then there's an equalized temperature kind of there. So nothing too hot is going in here. Even though I've let the butter sit for a while, it still feels a little bit on the warm side. No, I can feel this just doesn't even feel warm. So it should be pretty good. Anything above room temperature is probably going to be just fine for your liquids you add here. Like I said, remember, yeast is a living organism. Now, if you have a stand mixer with a dough hook, that'll be the best thing to use here. I have a little portable mixer here, so we're going to mix this up. I'm going to mix it for about 5 minutes, and we'll see. It'll definitely work better. Here's a pro tip for y'all. This thing goes into one of these outlet things in the wall, and it works 1,000,000 times better. Look at that. So I'll show you what this looks like after we beat it for a while, because this is going to get a lot thicker. Now I'm going to admit that this mixer didn't work very good at all. As soon as you started mixing up the dough, it would just go up to the top of the beaters, and it was all getting jammed up around the top up here. So I started with the plastic spoon and kneaded it by hand. But anyway, we've got a pretty nice texture here now. So we roll it into a ball. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of olive oil here into this bowl. I don't know, how about, well, just a little bit just to coat the sides. I'll put a capful in there and see what that looks like. Move it around, coat the sides with it. Because we are now at the point where we're going to let this dough rise. So we're just going to roll that around, make sure the sides of that get coated. It's kind of just a fun game right now at this point. Here we go. Now you see what size we're dealing with here, so when we come back, and this should take anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. We'll check it in about an hour and a half. Now, if you watch the beginning of my video, you know that it's cold out, so obviously I'm not putting it outside. Come on, are you crazy? It's 32 degrees out there. If your home is cool, what you can do is you can turn on your oven light and put it inside your oven. Oven light should heat it up to about 90 degrees in there, which will be actually a little bit warm. And if you have a fancy oven, it may even have a bread proofing feature on it. But for me, I always set it on top of the refrigerator. It's nice and warm in here. Well, while we're waiting for the dough to rise here, we're going to make some pizza sauce. This is something that I have never really done before, so welcome to my journey. So we are melting in here a couple tablespoons of butter. It's 2 tablespoons of butter. I have grated up an onion here. This is a little bit over 1/3 of a cup. I like onion, so I kept going. We'll add that in there. We'll add some salt to taste. A little bit less than a teaspoon of salt. Some oregano. 1 teaspoon sounds good to me. Sounds good to you? Okay, that's what we'll do then. Let's turn this down here because a little bit more than I can handle at one time. You know, this is my channel, and I kind of started doing a YouTube channel for more of my motorcycle adventures, but I do a lot of cooking as well because that's an adventure in itself. And some red pepper flakes. There we go. About a 1/2 teaspoon or so. All right, so we'll saute up these onions 5 minutes or so. I'll show you what goes in after this. Onions are browning up nicely here, so we're going to add a can of crushed tomatoes. Of course, you could do your own crushed tomatoes, make them yourself. Yeah, I got this thing turned way down. This is a hot burner. All right, so we got our tomatoes added in there. I don't have any fresh garlic in the house here, but I got some of this minced garlic, so just whatever equals out to a couple cloves of garlic. I mean, that's to taste as well. If you like garlic, add more. I'll probably put more than I needed in here. I'm even add more because I love it. And a little bit of sugar for that sweetness. That's a 1/4 teaspoon. So what we want to do now is just let this whole thing get up to simmering here. And we will simmer it for about 30 minutes. And that'll kill some time while we wait for this bread to rise. Our sauce is all simmered up and gotten considerably thicker. And look at how our dough has risen here. Very nice. So now what we are going to do, I've never made pizza dough like this, but we're going to roll it out. And we're going to make it sort of like a cinnamon roll here because we're going to be adding some butter into it. So before we knock it out of here, we're just going to Punch this down a little bit. And we will use the rolling pin, roll this out. Into sort of a rectangular shape. If you've ever made pizza dough before, this is going to be a little bit different than any way you've made it before, but trust me, it'll be interesting and good. Let's hope and get a good view of what's going on here. So I've got some melted butter. This would have probably been better if it was just a little bit soft, but melted will work. We'll spread that out on here. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to roll this up, and this is going to make lots of layers of delicious buttery goodness. Well, that's the idea. As you can see, like I said, softened butter would have probably worked better than melted, but that's okay. We'll get it in there. Okay, now we're going to cut that in half. Put them back in here. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to form these into a ball. You see how they got these layers? It's going to be layers of buttery goodness. There we go. So you just roll them over into a ball, see? Grab that one. All right, now we're going to put the foil back on, put that in the fridge for about an hour. They should rise some more. Our dough has risen in the refrigerator for a little bit over an hour. Now we are going to roll this out into a Alaskan deep dish pizza here. Ideally, you would use a 9-inch cake pan. I don't have one, so we're going to make it in a pie pan. So we're going to make it big enough to fit that whole thing. So if you look here, the roller is a little bit wider than that. So we're just going to try to roll this out into a fair approximation of a circle. A little bit bigger than the overall diameter of this pie pan. All right, the dough's all rolled out. Let's see if we can't get it in this pie pan here. Like I said, usually you'd use a 9-inch cake pan, but pie pan works too, I guess. There we go. I would usually trim off that excess, but we're just going to kind of push it in here. Crust looks all right. Now we're going to add some cheese. I got mozzarella here. Cheese goes in first on a Chicago, or I'm sorry, Alaskan deep dish pizza. Oh, I keep making that mistake, huh? Okay, now toppings. Let's go with some health food. Pepperoni. Just a couple. And some mushrooms, because that's what we've got. Of course, toppings are subjective, so top it however you'd like. All kinds of good stuff you can put on pizza, except for pineapple. Don't ever do that. Now we got our homemade sauce that we simmered up earlier, so we're going to put half of that on there. And the oven just told me it's ready, so let's finish this up. Quarter cup of mozzarella cheese over the top. Yeah, how about some more? You'll hardly ever hear anyone say that there's too much cheese on a pizza. And I think I'm going to brush a little bit of olive oil on the outside of the crust here. So let me get that done and then we'll throw it in the oven. All right, I've hit the edge of the crust with some olive oil, put it on a cookie sheet here. Gonna go in the oven, 425 degrees for about 25 minutes. Obviously, I have a second crust, so when this one comes out, we're gonna devour it and we're gonna make the second pizza, but let's get this one in there, we'll get it out so y'all can see what it looks like. That is a masterpiece. Looking good, out of the oven, 25 minutes, 425 degrees. Let's see if we can't cut a slice. We'll let it sit here for a few minutes. We'll cut a slice and maybe give it to, maybe give a little bit to the baby, see if she likes it. So I think it's best if you let it cool off a while. You take it out and it gets a little bit sloppy, but you can see how nice and thick the crust got here. And nice deep dish pizza. Baby's hungry over there, but I'll take a bite first here and we'll see if it's any good. Turned out pretty good. Little Zelda's a little sad. Let's see if we can get some pizza in her mouth. What do you think, Zelda? Is it okay? Is it okay? All right, well, I'll accept that. Yummy. Well, she's eating it, so what more needs to be said? First pizza disappeared pretty quick. I had to make a second one. So that's part of the game. You make 2 pizzas with this recipe and we'll see how much of this remains, but it was a hit. Everyone ate it. So I hope you enjoy the Alaska deep dish pizza recipe. Give it a shot. It's pretty easy to make. It does take some time, but you know what? It's worth it, especially when you see the smiles on your family's face and you see that there's no leftovers. So, thank you very much for watching. Get out there and find your adventure. Adios.